Meseches Bava Kamma Daf Chaf Daled begins immediately following a Mishnah at the bottom of Daf Chaf Gimel and ends with another Mishnah. We have two primary sugyas. The first is explaining our Mishnah and its discussion of how an animal becomes a tam, how an animal becomes a muad. The Gemara will discuss where we learn those opinions and how we paskin. As an extension of that, the Gemara will also discuss, is it about the cow or is it about the testimony to its owner? Our second sugya will be if you incite an animal to go attack, is that the responsibility of the owner of the animal or not? And we'll end off with the Mishnah, which introduces to us the topic of the Sharamazik versus Hanizik, and whether or not you pay Nezik Shalom or Chatzi Nezik for that, for Karen. So let's begin. We've seen in the last Mishnah a discussion of how does an animal go from a Gitam to being a Muad. So two opinions on that, and also two opinions as to how it goes back to being a Tam. So as far as going from Tam to Muad, so Rabbi Huda says it has to be 3 different days, the 3 different attacks that it does in a minimum of 3 days. And then the opinion of Rabbi Meir that it doesn't have to be 3 days, it could just be 3 times. It can be 3 times within 1 day, 3 hours, whatever it is. And as it go back to being a tam, so on that, Rabbi Huda says, however long it took it to become a muad, has to undo that by having an opportunity to attack 3 times. So if it, let's say it became a muad with attacks on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, so 3 days. So if it has 3 days where it sees a potential victim, it sees another cow walking by and it does not attack it 3 times in 3 days, then it goes back to being a tam. Now, Rabbi Meir agrees to that, but what he adds is it could actually become a tam in one moment, just like it could become a muad in 3 hours in 1 day. It could also become a tam quickly, and that's if it shows a very docile nature all of a sudden. And the example that he gives in the Mishnah is that you have children that are poking it and aggravating it, and it doesn't bother attacking, it seems to be calm about it, that would be an indication that it's gone to being a tam, and now it's a tam moving forward. Okay, that's the Mishnah. The Gemara's first discussion is what is the source of Rabbi Huda's opinion, and where does Rabbi Meir get his opinion? So Rabbi Huda says it has to be 3 days. So the Gemara says it's learned from a pasuk about becoming a muad, which indicates 3 days. It says, it's known that it is a goring animal, mitmol shilshaim, from yesterday and from 2 days ago. Now, there's a machlekes here, Abaye and Rava, how we read the pasuk, and a machlekes rishonim, whether there is a difference between Abaye and Rava's reading. Abaye's reading is that it's mitmol is 2 days. Tmol is 1, mitmol is another day, shilshaim is the 3rd day. Those are the 3 times when it attacked and it was not a muad yet. Now, today, when it attacks the 4th time, then it becomes a muad. According to Rashi, Rava's reading is that no, there's no tmol mitmol. That's all one. That's all 1 day. And then shilshem is the 2nd day. Now it's standing on the 3rd day, and it already has to pay nezik shalom on the 3rd attack that happens. Now, Taisus argues, but that's how Rashi learns. Now, so this is all Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, and here he says that the negicha has to be 3 days. Now, Rabbi Meir agrees that the pasuk is talking about 3 days. However, Rabbi Meir says if it becomes a muad with attacks that are spread over 3 days, kal v'chaymer, even more so, it becomes a muad if it attacks 3 times in 1 day. Being closer together makes it worse. It doesn't make it any less of an issue. So, Marasakash on that, you see that in the halacha of a zava, that she becomes what's called a zava gedayla if she has 3 flows in 3 days. However, if it's a 3 in 1 day, she does not. And the Gemara is assuming that it's changing her chazaka to being a cheskas zava, and therefore it should be the same type of halacha as changing an animal's nature to be a cheskas nagchan, and the same halacha should apply. And yet we see that being closer together is not a problem, even though being spread over 3 days is a problem. Over there, the halacha is, again, a zava is a woman who sees a flow of blood during the Yemei Ziv, the time of her cycle in which she's not expecting it. And if it happens 3 times in 1 day, she does not become a Zava Gedayla. She becomes what's called a Zava Ktana. She only has to have 1 clean day. She becomes a Zava Gedayla when she sees 3 times in 3 days. And there, that gives her the halacha that she needs to have Shimon Akim. She needs to have 7 clean days before she can achieve Tahara. Now, it's only 3 days. If it be 3 times in 1 day, not. So you see, contrary to what Rabbi Yehuda to what Rabbi Meir seems to be saying, closer together is not more of a chazaka. So the Gemara answers that's different. That's what is Xeris HaKasav. Really, in Svara, it should be, like I'm saying. Over there, there's Xeris HaKasav that she does not become a Cheskas Zava seeing in one day. Where's the Xeris HaKasav? So the Xeris HaKasav is where the Torah talks about a Zav, and it indicates that a Zav becomes a Zav with only 3 Riyas in one day. It doesn't have to be one day, but it's 3 Riyas, and it's not dependent on the days. And it limits it to Zav. It says V'zois Tia Tamasa B'Zayvai, and it uses the word Zayvai 3 times in the pasuk. So the use of the word Zayvai 3 times indicates 3 occasions, 3 flows, even if it's in one day. And then it says V'zois that this is only for the Zav that you have this halacha that it's one day. However, for a Zava, it's got to be spread over 3 days. So therefore, it's a Xeris HaKasav. Now, the Gemara asks, how do you know that that's what the V'zois is teaching me? How do you know that it's limiting the Zava to 3 days and not 3 times in one day? Maybe it's limiting the Zav to 3 times in one day and not 3 separate days. I mean, how do you know that it's limiting the Zav? That it's limiting the Zav? Maybe we should be living the Zav. So the Gemara says, no, it can't be, because we have a Hekesh. It says V'hazav es zayvay l'zachar l'nekeva, which links the Zachar and the Nekeva. Just like Nekeva becomes a Zava if it's spread over 3 days, so Zachar also. So you can't tell me that it's limiting the Zav. So the Gemara says, well, why don't you just say that the Hekesh is the other way? Say that the Hekesh is to include 3 Re'iyos, 3 occasions for a Zava, that she does become a Zava if it's 3 times in one day. So the Gemara says, well, you can't. It says V'zois. V'zois is to exclude that. So the Gemara says, but again, you could include one, you could exclude one. V'zois includes one, and the V'zois that is excludes one, and you have the linkage, the Hekesh, includes one. How do you know which one? How do you know which way to go? So Mer says it's logical that V'zois, which is talking about Re'iyos, is limiting Re'iyos, and it's limiting the 3 occasions in one day that applies only where it's written, only by the Zav, and not by the Zava. Okay, so that's the Gemara's discussion of the sources of the opinions of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. Now the Gemara says, what is our halacha? So Gemara quotes a brisa which adds 2 more opinions that take sides here. And they are Rabbi Yosi and Rabbi Shimon. Now Rabbi Shimon, as far as halacha becoming a muad, says like Rabbi Yehuda. He says that it's 3 days. Now as far as the halacha of becoming a tam, he says like Rabbi Meir, that that's when the kids are bothering him and he's not responding, the ox that is. Rabbi Shimon is the opposite. Rabbi Shimon, and how you become a muad, says like Rabbi Meir, that has to be 3 times, not 3 days. And as far as becoming a tam again, he says 3 of whatever it was, 3 days, however much it became a muad, that's how he becomes 3 again. And he says, the way he phrases it is he only said 3 days as far as going back to being a tam. So there he says like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara, how do we paskin based on this? So the Gemara says Rav Nachman said that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda in Muad, because Rabbi Yosi goes like him, and the halacha is like Rabbi Meir in Tam, because Rabbi Yosi goes like him. Meaning he paskins like Rabbi Yosi all the way through, which is like Rabbi Yehuda, you become a Muad in 3 days, and like Rabbi Meir, they become a Tam, even if the kids are bothering him and he's not responding. So the Gemara asks, why are you going with the fact that Rabbi Yosi supported Rabbi Yehuda here and Rabbi Meir there? Go with Rabbi Shimon supported. Rabbi Shimon supported Rabbi Meir in the case of Muad, and Rabbi Shimon came with Rabbi Yehuda in the case of Chazara to being a Tam. So the answer, I want to go like Rabbi Yosi, because Rabbi Yosi always has his reason with him, his nimuka imai, and therefore that's how I'm going to paskin. Okay, next sugya, the Gemara says when we make a muad means to testify. I mean, you're testifying to the owner that this animal has gored, and that is the first indication, it's the first warning that he has to watch him, and then that happens 3 times. So Gemara says the point of the 3 hadas is saying 3 different times that the animal gored, or it's saying 3 times to the owner. So Gemara says what we're asking is the spread over 3 days. According to the opinions, it has to be 3 days. That means the goring has to be 3 days, or it means the owner has to be told off. The owner has to be warned on 3 separate days. What's an nafkamina? Either way, it's going to have to be over 3 days. Gemara says the nafkamina is if the animal gores over 3 days, and all the witnesses come and tell the owner on the same day. So if it's about the animal, the 3 days is for the animal, for the goring, so then that qualifies here because he had all 3 days. If, however, it's for the owner, in this case he didn't have 3 days for the owner got all his warnings only on 1 day, that doesn't count. He'll think that he needs 2 more days before he has to start watching an animal, treating it like a muad. So, which is it? So the Gemara says we're going to bring a raya from a lengthy brisa. The brisa says the halachas of becoming a muad, and it also refers to if the witnesses testifying to the muad state of the cow are liars, if they're zaymimin, when they have to pay hazama. And our raya is going to come from there. So let's see the brisa. The brisa says a shard does not become a muad until we testify against him in front of the owners and in front of the beis din. If you had one without the other, it does not count. It does not become a muad. Again, it has to be in front of the beis din and in front of the owners. Now, if you had a pair of witnesses that testified to the first attack, a different pair to the second attack, and the third pair for the third attack, then you have three testimonies, and it becomes a muad now, and all of these count as one as far as hazama. So if the first set of witnesses become Eidim Zaymimin, that if somebody testifies that you are lying, you cannot have been there because you were with us in a different place, and that is Xeris Akaz, if we believe the second pair, we assume the first one are lying, and anything that they tried to falsely make a person, they have to pay themselves. So, how much do they have to pay here? So their testimony included two things. First of all, they said an attack happened, and therefore you have to pay chatzi nezik for that. They also were the first of three for hadah. So what happens here is we assume that they are lying, right? Like we said, because they became zaymimin. So the attack we don't believe happened, and the owner is patur, doesn't have to pay for the attack that they claimed. As far as becoming zaymimin, they don't have to pay hazama. Usually, if they were to be zaymimin, they would have to pay for what they tried to claim, but their testimony alone did not create the hazama, and the other two have not become zaymimin. They did not create the hadah, they did not create the nezek shalim situation alone, and the other two are still okay. The only way you could become, they would have to pay the nezek shalim part that they wanted to be mechayev is if all three sets become huzam. So the brisa continues and says, now if the second group became zaymimin, still you don't have to. The owner is not going to have to pay for the second attack now, but still the eidim don't have to pay for the extra nezek shalom that they want to be mechayev because you still haven't been mezim alota. If, however, now you're mazim, the third group of eidim, all of them are zaymimin. Now they all have to pay hazama. They all have to pay the nezek shalom. That together, as a group, they would have been mechayev. So now the Gemara has a kasha over here. So you're telling me there are three different groups, and they all become hazama, they all become zaymimin. Now they all have to pay for the nezek shalom that they would have been mechayev. But the problem is, how are they each supposed to know that they were part of a hazama situation? How do you know that they were zaymimin with intent to cause the owner to have to pay nezek shalom? Maybe they just wanted him to pay chatzei nezek. They wanted to testify to the one attack that happened. What are the long-term repercussions of this? Who says that they had any intent for that? Now, if you say that they all came the same day, so the Gemara says, I understand that. If you say they came in 3 different days, how's the first group supposed to know that tomorrow another group's going to come? That attack didn't even happen yet. So the Gemara says, obviously it must be that they came all on one day. If they came all on one day, then they came on the third day, possibly, most likely, after all the attacks happened. And the third nizik wants to bring them, the fourth nizik wants to bring them and show that there was a muad and make them have to pay nezek shalom. Make the owner have to pay nezek shalom for that. So you see that all the 3 testimonies could happen on one day, and it does not have to be on the same day. So the 3 days is for the cow, the 3 negichas have to be on separate days, but not the 3 hadas. So Gemara asks, the problem with this is even if you'll say that they all came on the same day, you still have the same problem that you asked on if they came separate days. How is the first set of Edom supposed to know that other Edom are going to come along? He's the first one. He doesn't know what's happening after him, even if they're on the way. But even if the attack already happened and they're on the way, who says he knows? So the Gemara gives a few answers. The Gemara gives one answer that they are hinting to each other. They're being meramis to each other, that they're joining together. So you see that there's communication between them and they knew about, and it's a plot together. Rav Ashi says they actually came the same time and they came as a group, but therefore it was a plot that they all had it together. Now, Ravina said a whole different answer. He said they knew in their testimony, they're testifying, they knew who the owner is, but they didn't know which cow it is. 3 different edus, they knew the owners, they did not know which cow it is. Now, the halach is if you don't know which cow it is, you're not mechayev chatzei nezek for this attack, because the payment for this attack only comes from the cow itself, right? It's migufa. If they didn't know which cow it is, so then you can't be mechayev it. So what are they coming for? So they're coming only for a greater purpose, not to create a hadah. So therefore, that's the situation. Now, the Gemara asks if they don't know which cow it is, how do you make it a muad? I don't know which one it is. So the Gemara says they make the entire herd muadim. They say one of your oxen here is a muad, one of your oxen is a nagchan. You better watch the entire herd. Okay, that concludes this sugya. The Gemara goes on to the next sugya of where someone incites an animal to attack someone else. So who's chayiv? So you have here Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Levi incites Reuven's dog to attack Shimon. So what's the halacha? So the Gemara says the Meshaseh, the one who incites Levi, he is pater for sure. He's a groma. He caused the nezik to happen, but he didn't actually do anything, and therefore he's pater for sure. The question is the owner of the dog. It's Reuven's dog who attacked Shimon because of Levi. Is Reuven responsible for the fact that he had the dog which was incitable? Right? Should we say to him, you knew that your dog can be riled up to attack, and therefore you shouldn't keep the dog around? Or do we say, he could say, if he would have been left alone, he wouldn't have bothered anybody, why should he be responsible for that? Now, says Rabbi Zera ben Geraya from our Mishnah. The Mishnah says that it goes back to being a tam when the children are bothering the ox and it doesn't respond. That indicates that if the children bother the ox and it does respond, then yechayev. He would be chayev for that attack. Now, why should he be chayev? The ox is being incited. It attacks. Now, interestingly, the Rishonim here say the kids bother the ox. It doesn't attack them. It attacks another ox. If it attacked them, that wouldn't have anything to do with hadah, because hadah for a person and hadah for an ox is different. As we've seen earlier in the Masechta, humans have a special shmira, and they also can take care of themselves more than animals. So, therefore, it's being incited. The ox is being incited by the kids, and the implication from the Mishnah is that it will be chayiv, because it only says that if it does not respond, then it's pater. Then it becomes a tam. That indicates if it responds, it's chayiv. So why should that be if it's being incited? Obviously, you see that even if you incite an animal, the owner is still responsible. On that, Abai answers not necessarily. The dik's not correct. All you can see is that if it will respond, it doesn't go back to being a tam. You don't see that it's chayiv. Maybe really it's pater because it was incited, but that it goes back to being a tam, that not. So therefore, again, you don't see a proof from here that it becomes actually chayiv. So the Gemara now tries another proof. The Gemara says, we have a raya that says that if somebody incites a dog or a snake, he's pater. That indicates that it's the inciter that's pater. So that indicates the one who incites is pater, but the one who owns the dog or the snake is chayiv. The Gemara says no. Maybe it means even the inciter is pater, but certainly the one who owns is pater as well. Now, it says Rava, if you want to say that somebody who incites a dog to attack, he is chayiv, what happens if he attacks the inciter? The you start up with a dog and he attacks you. So he says, Rava says, the halacha is it would be pater. Why? Even if you are chayiv for incitement, generally, here, the owner of the dog is pater, because you were meshana. It's called meshana b'achar b'shita boy. You do something strange, you do something inappropriate, and then it causes an inappropriate, unacceptable reaction. So the person who reacts is pater, and that's what happens here when you incited the dog against yourself. Says Rav Papa to Rava. Said the name of Rish Lakish, just like this halacha. Rish Lakish said if you have two cows in Rosh Hashanah, one is lying down and one is walking, and the one who's walking kicks the one who's lying down, then she's patura, because one who's lying down in the middle of the street is mashana. Called mashana b'achar b'shita is pater. However, if the one who's lying down kicks the one who's walking, then she's chayav because there's no kol mashana. So he said, no, that's not the same as my case. Actually, in my case, I would be mechayev, because I would say, when do you have rishus to walk on me? You have rishus because I'm lying in the street, but to kick me, that you didn't have a reason for that, and therefore that kicking would be chayiv. Okay, now we'll begin the next Mishnah, and this Mishnah introduces the topic of sharmazik b'rishus hanezik. That's if an animal commits an attack of Karen, kavanasi l'hazik, it attacks violently, and it's in the rishus of the nezik, it's in the property of the victim. So we're going to see a machlekes whether it is nezik shalom or chatzi nezik. Ordinarily, Karen is chatzi nezik. Here it might be nezik shalom. So the Mishnah says, what is the case? So if it gores, pushes, bites, lies down, or kicks, 5 types of attacks. So if it's in Rosh Hashanah, it's chatzi nezik. If it's in Rosh Hashanah nezik, machlekes, Rabbi Tarfon says nezik shalom, and the Chachamim say chatzi nezik. Now, Rabbi Tarfon explains his position with a kavachaymer, and then he changes the kavachaymer to answer what the Gemara. So he says, let's compare the case of a shah of Shane Varegel to the case of Karen. And let's learn from Shane Varegel what's stricter, Rishus Hanizik or Rishus Harabim. So let's see, by Shane Varegel, Rishus Harabim is Potter and Rishus Hanizik is Chayiv. So you see Rishus Hanizik is stronger, is more likely to be Mechayiv. So now let's go to Karen. Karen in Rishus Harabim is Chayiv. It's only Chatzin Nezik, but it's Chayiv. So Rishus Hanizik, which is stronger, should be Chayiv Nezik Shalom. So on that, Chacham said there's a problem. There's a rule called Dayi Lovim Adin Lias Kinidi. You can make a kavachlaimer only to prove that the stronger thing has at least the same halacha as the weaker thing. You can't see that it's actually stronger. So the most you can learn is Chatzin Nezik. You can't learn an actual Nezik Shalom. So Rabbi Tarfon revises his kavachlaimer, says, we're not going to compare Shane Varegel to Karen. We'll compare Rishus Harabim to Rishus Hanizik. So our case will be Rishus Harabim. We'll see. Let's see there in Rishus Harabim which is more Chayav, Shane Varegel or Karen, and let's compare that to Rishus Hanizik. So in Rishus Harabim, the halacha is that Shane Varegel is Potter and Karen is Chayav. So you see, Karen is more likely to be Chayav. You see, in the case of Rishus Harabim, Karen is more likely to be Chayav than Shane Varegel. Now Karen's only Chayav Chatzin Nezik there. So therefore, Rishus Hanizik, where Shane Varegel is Chayav Nezik Shalom, Karen, which is stronger, should certainly be Chayiv, and it should be Chayiv Nezik Shalom, because you're learning from Shane Varegel, which is Chayiv Nezik Shalom. So Gemara says, again, the Chachamim said back, you still have a dire problem, because you're still only learning out of Karen, and learning that Karen was stronger in the Rishus Harabim, but there's only, again, Chatzin Nezik. So how could you learn to hear that it could be more than that? The best it could be is Chatzin Nezik. You can't prove Nezik Shalom.